you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50-plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! And a good Monday morning, and unbelievable Monday morning, actually, as far as Philadelphia Eagle fans should be concerned. We will be throwing out a lot of high praise today on Birds 365. The Mac and Mac guys, Jody McDonald, along with my partner, John McMullen. Well, that was complete domination. It wasn't Mr.
Yeah. Now, let's call them frauds. You know, I was just on your Twitter account, and you put a little tease for the show. I saw you put it up there, and there were a couple of replies calling the Eagles frauds because Dallas is higher on some kind of weird ranking. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know what these people want. They can't be satisfied. So you can only do what's in front of you. I thought this was maybe the most disparity between talent of the entire season when I looked at what was going on with the Giants. Not only, I mean, the Giants aren't a good football team, so I give Brian Daboll a ton of credit for getting them to where they are, but they're also really banged up. So you put that on top of it, and I said, woof, this is going to be a tough one. I didn't think it was going to be that tough. It wasn't as close as the final score.
No, it really wasn't.
No, it was not as close as the final score. 3 possessions, 3 touchdowns to start the game. It was over. It was over. I joked, do you know Ira Thor? I didn't know Ira, but he's the press box guy at MetLife for Giants game. I don't know about Jets, but
yeah, I don't think so.
He came to the game with tremendous energy. Like, he's an energy guy. Brandon Graham's an energy guy. Zach Berman's an energy. I always have tremendous respect for these people that just have great energy every day. He was so fired up, everything you could hear it in his voice after that 3rd touchdown. They even beat down poor Ira Thor. I put it on Twitter and he replied back. He didn't have coffee, but no, it affected him. It affected him.
It did. It was complete and utter domination from the get-go, as you mentioned, right down the field. Touchdown, first 3 possessions, touchdown. The defense was making Daniel Jones's life difficult every single week, which, oh, by the way, speaking of those who just you can't win over, the Philadelphia Eagles now lead the National Football League in sacks.
Yeah, how about that?
They surpassed the Cowboys yesterday to become the #1 sack team in the National Football League. So please give it a rest on the Jonathan Gannon is not aggressive enough talk.
They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't do it, Jody. I don't know, you know. And I said it on set with Seth last night, and obviously Seth's a big aggression guy. And I say it all the time. The comparison is not Buddy Ryan. It's not Jim Johnson. It's not Seth Joyner's defense. It's everybody else in 2022. That's the comparison. That's the comparison. And the Eagles play better defense. Maybe San Francisco's in the conversation. They can have an argument. But the Eagles play better defense than just about anybody in the NFL. That's the comparison. That's it.
Right. It's a 2022 thing, not a 2022 compared to 1995 thing. That just it doesn't matter, and it doesn't hold water. And you know me, I'm a sack guy. You give much more credence and credit to pressures and quarterback hits and the like. I want to know about getting home. And they're getting home more than anyone in the National Football League. How can you ask for better results than that? It's just stone cold ridiculous. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about offense, defense, or special teams. All of a sudden, the Eagles are not only okay on special teams, they're good on special teams. So what phase of the game is this Philadelphia Eagle team not dominating the National Football League in right now?
Well, I don't think they're dominant in special teams by any stretch. And obviously they had the block punt and Aaron Cepas got injured. So that's an issue. But yeah, Boston Scott, we all know it's the Boston Scott week. You know, the guy barely plays, but I knew something was going to happen. And he throws a 66-yard kickoff return right after that punt, which set up the Giants' first touchdown. And then he scored a touchdown late in the game. Yeah, I mean, offensively and defensively, look, this team is, you know, my biggest question is which is better, offense or defense? Because I think it's a really difficult conversation to have. One came into the game number 2, one came into the game number 3. They probably only went up. It's boy, this is the best Eagles team I've ever seen. Doesn't guarantee anything because and hat tip to San Francisco, they were able to win again with Brock Purdy. I mean, they look like the second best team in the NFC. Dallas struggled. Where are those people that the Eagles struggled with Houston? They didn't struggle like that with Houston.
No, they did not.
They didn't have their best game in Houston by any stretch of the imagination, but the Cowboys had to scratch and claw to win that football game. And Minnesota, as predicted, just collapsed again defensively in the passing game and loses to Detroit. It is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer that the road to the Super Bowl goes through Lincoln Financial Field. It's going to go through Lincoln Financial Field. And look, the one thing that can get anybody is injuries. And we already saw it, you know, Reed Blankenship, there's some serious concern there. So you're down to your third safety. Serious concern with Aaron Cepas. Now, Lane Johnson talked to him after the game. He thinks he's going to be fine. That's big. We'll see as the week goes on. But injuries can derail anyone. And you saw it with the Giants. That's part of the reason the Giants were so bad. I mean, it wasn't just – look, they're in rebuilding mode. They still need that talent. And as I said, Brian Daboll did some tremendous things early in the season, winning a lot of games with mirrors. But, you know, some of their best players were not playing. Leonard Williams and Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson on defense. That's 3 of their 4 best players on defense. I mean, so they had nothing coming in the game from a talent standpoint. And, yeah, they were a road apple.
Yeah, and Saquon Barkley just didn't look like Saquon Barkley. He'd been a question mark leading up to the game with a neck thing. I don't know what kind of percentage he was playing at yesterday, but he just had no burst whatsoever. But that's just another area where the Philadelphia Eagles have gotten better over the course of the season. Credit to the coaching staff, credit to the individual players, credit to Howie Roseman, who went out and got them 2 proven veteran defensive tackles to make them better against the run. Giants couldn't run it worth a damn yesterday. And we, 5 weeks ago, we were worried about, they got Travis, they got Travis Henry coming up. They got Saquon Barkley coming up. They faced these guys and beating them down.
I'm glad you brought that up because, it was Brian Robinson in Washington and all the hand-wringing about, oh, my God, you can't stop Brian Robinson. How are you going to stop Jonathan Taylor and Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley? Well, here we are. It's over. And that stretch was not the only one who had even a mediocre game was Taylor. He had like 22 for 84, which is not great. He had one, and by the way, had one big run to skew that. Yeah, they dominated. In a lot of ways, I think that was people didn't realize that was a little bit of a break because they went through that stretch when they lost Avonte Maddox, and Avonte thankfully got back. And then they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And they were facing a bunch of teams that couldn't take advantage of it. They couldn't pass the ball consistently. So it actually played into the Eagles' hands a little bit. But yeah, all that hand wringing, it's over. And look at where we are.
Yeah, running the ball against the Eagles has turned out to be a chore, not a way to victory over Philadelphia. So
they do it with light boxes too. Amazing. They didn't have to load the box against Derrick Henry. These morons. Sorry, Jody.
That's okay. They did not. And again, I do want to give Howie credit because he went out and when he saw a need, he filled it with guys who were established in the league, who could flat out fill the void that the Eagles had. I want to give credit to the coaching staff because they get them ready. It is Jonathan Gannon's light box way of doing things. And when you've got superior players, you can get away with that. And right now he's got superior players on the defensive line. But let's give credit to the players themselves, like Sue, like Linval Joseph. Jordan Davis come back. He's almost like a non-factor. They only play him a handful of plays every single game. They don't need to. But Fletcher's picked it up and played better. Hargrave has been great all year. And specifically, and we got Marcus Hayes joining us coming up in just a couple of minutes. The guys on the end. Hassan Reddick got his 10th sack yesterday. So now this is 3 straight years for 3 different teams that Hassan Reddick has gotten double-digit sacks, which I don't know has ever been done in the National Football League before. I doubt it has. Josh Sweat, another big sack again yesterday. And specifically, Brandon Graham, up to 8.5 sacks with his big day yesterday. He's got a legit shot at double-digit sacks this year. You were there every single day. You saw him. You said he's looking good. He's moving around like he's playing. I seriously question whether Brandon Graham was going to have anything left in the tank coming into this year. He's playing as well now as he ever has in his entire career. He's been unbelievable for the Eagles. So, yeah, we got to give credit to the players. I know I like to analyze the coaches and the moves by the general manager, whatever. But bottom line is it comes down to the players. And damn, the Eagles are getting great defensive line play.
Yeah, I would put Howie in there too because Howie's built this roster. You got to give him credit. You got players the coaching staff wants and desired in fit specific roles. So he's a big part of it. But yeah, ultimately personnel is more important than anything else. That's why I thought the Eagles would run the Giants off the field. That's why they ran them off the field. Personnel. They have better players. They have better players all over the field. With Brandon, it's interesting because I think he's played better, but he used to play a lot. Now he's a closer and he's accepted his role. He plays a limited amount of snaps at his age and coming off the Achilles. And he's out there to do specific things and he's dominating in that specific role. So they come at you in waves and they're so deep. And now they have 2 nose tackles. Look, the reason Jordan Davis isn't involved, Linval Joseph didn't play enough. When you're up 21-0, you don't have to play the 5-man fronts. You're going after the quarterback. But when they need it, they have it. They have those 2 big bodies in the middle. And now you have Ndamukong Suh to mix in with the funny part is, Jody, they had to put Robert Quinn on IR. Look, I'm not saying it's a fake injury, but they needed to get Milton Williams some snaps, and they can't trust everybody. Janarius Robinson's out there waiting for his chance. They're so deep on the defensive line. And that's, you go back to Jim Schwartz and it's the engine of the defense. When you can come at people in waves like that, it is really, really difficult for offensive lines.
All right, so we're here to talk about the first place, only 1-loss team in the National Football League, moving up the statistical rankings in basically every category, Philadelphia Eagles. Here on Birds 365, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We got 2 good guests to add into the mix today. First up is the ink-stained Rich himself. That's his Twitter handle. Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the WIP is going to jump in with us next to talk Philadelphia Eagles here on Birds 365.
Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered.
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated.
Motivated. And always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Appreciate you streaming in with us on Birds 365, talking about the 12-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Johnny Mack, yours truly, Jody McDonald, along with Marcus Hayes, who jumps into the fray from the Philadelphia Inquirer and also WIP. Marcus, here's where I want to start with you today. I want to borrow a word that my partner likes to use: unsustainable. Is there anything that the Philadelphia Eagles are doing right now that you think is unsustainable? It can't be as good as we're seeing with our own two eyes. At some point, it has to level off. Is there any aspect of their game that you would put into that category?
Well, I assume this is a devil's advocate question. I guess the only issue would be if they come up against a defense that can cover for more than 4 or 5 seconds, because that's how good their offensive line is. If they come up against that defense, it can make the offense less potent, which then brings the other team's running game into play. And I know we're going to make a lot about what Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley didn't do the last 2 weeks, but Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley were taken out of the game pretty early. So there may be an erosive issue between the two older defensive tackles and Jordan Davis, who, isn't quite right and isn't expected to be quite right coming off that injury. So it's a long answer, but the answer, I think, is if they come up against a really good secondary that can cover long enough to cause problems for Jalen Hurts, keeps the game tight and allows their good running game to present itself against older defensive tackles who, I just don't know how good Sue and Joseph are going to be in January, So all that said, unlikely, it all seems very sustainable, but that's a formula that could maybe bite them, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we saw that in kind of the Washington game, Marcus, which is the only blemish on this team's record this season. They didn't really run the football that effectively, but they moved the chains. They were able to convert on third downs. I think it was kind of a perfect storm. The Eagles used too much tempo on offense, which is typically good for them. But when it bails, you get into sort of a Chip Kelly mode where the defense is right back on the field and you have this massive gap in time of possession. But boy, that's a small path. That's a small path. Washington on one day in November was able to navigate that path. But I don't like many teams' odds of navigating similar paths. Everything's about margin of error in this league. The Eagles' margin of error is pretty big right now. You think that's fair to say?
Well, I mean, clearly the most determinant factor in any football team, any football season, is turnover margin. Their quarterback has 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's insane. We're in week 13.
It's Aaron Rodgers territory.
Yeah. And this guy isn't Aaron Rodgers. Let's not be, he throws bad passes every once in a while, but he very seldom puts the football in harm's way. But he very seldom puts the football in harm's way because he's very seldom pressured. He's very seldom touched. And he can make the decisions on his end in the backfield to force a ball. Like the pass he threw to Devontae Smith yesterday, the short out that got a first down, Devontae wasn't open, and that's a tough throw. Other guys were open, but he was able to force that. I said that to say that's a very uncharacteristic ball for him to throw. He locked on Devontae and threw a tough pass, and they got the first down. That's the kind of decision you don't see him make often. It wasn't a bad decision. It was a good throw. And that throw in particular was probably, it was thrown in a place where only Devontae could catch it. It could have been defended, but only Devontae could catch it. But even that, when that happens, your eyes pop open because you're used to seeing him hit guys who were utterly wide open. Usually, if it's more than 6 or 7 yards down the field after he's, patted the ball a couple of times. I mean, you just can't overstate, and it all starts here for this entire team, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, whatever. That offensive line is one of the best I've ever seen. It's just, it's ridiculously good to the degree that there's a column to be written about, is it Jalen or is it the offensive line? And Ryan Tannehill would be this guy. Or what would Daniel Jones look like with an offensive line like this? It's a fair question. It's not his fault. It's not Jalen's fault. And it's perfect for him and his evolution because he still needs to evolve. But every time we talk about sustainability, it's sustainable as long as Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, and Jason Kelce are healthy.
And the other guy who's kind of flying under the radar, and he absolutely benefits from the phenomenal offensive line you just related to, Marcus, is Miles Sanders. Yeah, we like to talk about Jalen Hurts and making plays with his legs and his now 108.5 passer rating, which is the best in the National Football League. But, oh, by the way, Miles Sanders, over 1,000 yards, first in Shady McCoy, 144 yards yesterday, career high. And he is just like part of the mix. Other teams have that kind of rushing day from a guy like Miles Sanders, and they're talking about getting him a 5-year contract extension. With the Eagles, we'll see at the end of the year. If he comes back on a hometown discount, we'll keep Miles around. How underrated a season is Miles Sanders having?
It's an interesting term. I mean, again, I think, like you said, he's overshadowed by everything else, by A.J. Brown, who's a huge difference maker for everybody, by the offensive line, which makes it all happen, and by Jalen Hurts being proficient. He's an efficient quarterback. But Miles Sanders, my greatest criticism of Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen last year was that they didn't understand what they had in Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is shady light. He's a threat every time, and that's why that's why they drafted him. They wanted a running back who could score from the line of scrimmage every time to give those safeties pause to make play action relevant. And they don't use a lot of play action. And that's another criticism I have of them. They don't do a lot of stuff from under center. But Miles Sanders is having the kind of year that if you're Miles Sanders entering free agency, the kind of year you certainly want to have. And, he told me, he told me 8 weeks ago, I want to stay here. He says, I want to be here. He wants to win. He's having fun. He knows that he will continue to be productive with this offensive line. He knows that he will continue to be productive in this system now that they've understood what they have. And he's probably got 3 or 4 really, really elite years left, in part because he wasn't used a whole lot or as much as I think he should have been last season.
Yeah. What's crazy with Miles is, he's having this season. Jody gave you the numbers, also throw double-digit touchdowns after coming off a season where he had 0
at a goose egg,
which was crazy. But still, Marcus, I look at Miles and I look at this offense, and I'm with you. I can't get to Miles until I get to AJ and Devontae and the offensive line and the quarterback and Dallas Goedert when he's healthy. It's crazy to have somebody with the explosive ability of Miles Sanders, and he's almost an afterthought on this offense. The first 2 drives, 14 plays, 84 yards, 12 plays, 91 yards. That is astounding efficiency. You got to convert on 3rd down. They converted on the 4th down play with the big touchdown. And they've done this throughout the season. They've had these long, sustained drives, Marcus, in an era where everybody wants you to have long drives because they think you're going to make a mistake. In other words, everybody plays this Fangio-style defense, keep everything in front, no explosive plays, because ultimately, if you have to go 14 plays, if you have to go 12 plays, you're going to get a mistake. There's going to be a false start. There's going to be a tackle for loss. There's going to be a sack, and it's going to blow up the entire drive. Have you ever seen anything like the ability to sustain these long drives in the modern era, not in this particular era?
Yeah, San Francisco did it when they went to the Super Bowl with that great running game. And excuse me, they did it with the Kaepernick Super Bowl team. They've done it a couple of times. And the funny thing about that is I saw a stat that, you think of San Francisco, you think of, okay, they have these sort of second-tier quarterbacks and great running and defense.
Yeah.
I think they have 4 quarterbacks in the last 12 years, 14 years, who average or who are in the top 20 among average yards per attempt, which is probably the key indicator of efficient offense. So that doesn't mean they're throwing bombs. That means the yards when they do throw, not average yards per game, average attempts per game, but average yards per attempt.
Right.
They get their money's worth when they put the ball in the air. And it doesn't matter if it's Garoppolo or whoever. They've gotten their money's worth. So that said, there have been some teams that have been able to sustain drives, but they do it by understanding what's going to happen on every play. And that's really been the genius of Jalen Hurts. He understands what's going to happen. And we talk to Nick Sirianni a lot, John. And every time we say, where has Jalen taken the biggest jump, it's recognition. It's understanding what's in front of him and understanding what's probably going to happen in succession in every play. And that's really remarkable. You can talk about him being a coach's kid and studying and all that sort of stuff. This is something we didn't see from a coach's kid who'd been with 2 elite college programs and had, a year in this system with good coaching. All that said, this works again. It comes back again to the offensive line. They don't false start and they never hold. That's the key. Holding calls are the number one reason why drives.
They did against Tennessee. They had how many did they have against Tennessee, Jerry?
They had the offensive line had 11 penalties.
Yeah,
right.
The offensive line,
and that's what I mean. In the Tennessee game, Marcus, they did have those penalties, and they were able to. Usually, that's kind of my point. I'm glad you brought that up. Usually, when that happens, all right, drive's over, right? For most teams,
right?
With the Eagles and Jalen Hurts this year, he's like, all right, we got 5 extra yards, we got 10 extra yards. I'm just going to throw the football down the field. That was against Tennessee, but it's pretty amazing to see this team's ability. And he got 7 or 8 receivers involved in those first 2 drives. And Dallas Goedert isn't here. I was concerned about Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. The Eagles are game planning now for Grant Calcaterra early. It's pretty amazing. And you're right about the offensive line. A.J. Brown is another name you brought up. He's the final domino. I mean, A.J. is a superstar. I think we could all look at players and say they have flaws, and A.J. has flaws. He's a human being, but everybody has weaknesses. A.J. Brown, you put him in any offense in the NFL with any quarterback, and you saw it in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. It's not exactly, Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert throwing for all these yards. He's going to be effective. It is, his impact on the Eagles offense. Talk about that.
Well, you call him the final domino. I would contend that, so that implies that he kind of gets them over the top. I would say he's probably more important than certainly Devontae Smith, certainly Dallas Goedert, which is a surprise. I thought Dallas would be more important than AJ, but he also might be more important than Jalen Hurts, less replaceable, because there are only so many AJ Browns willing and able to do what AJ Brown does all the time. He completes his route. He blocks on the run. He is a spectacular leader. He's in unbelievable shape. He played hurt for a month and didn't complain about it, and played effectively hurt for a month. And he's a leader in the locker room. So all that said, he might be the least replaceable guy. I mean, everybody, it's kind of like when T.O. came in 2004, people were like, well, he's the final piece. No, he's a centerpiece. He's not the finishing touch. He's a centerpiece. And, I didn't know this about A.J. Brown. I don't know if you guys did. I didn't know that he was this good. And maybe he wasn't. Maybe he got better. He's, a fifth-year player? Sixth-year player?
Fourth year.
Fourth-year player. He's supposed to get better. Jeffrey Lurie says NFL players are what they will be by their fourth year. So, it's been a revelation. It's been pleasant, too. And honestly, John, I think A.J. Brown's surprising A.J. Brown. I don't think A.J. Brown realized he was this good.
I Jody and I talked about it all. And remember, Jody, I said he was top 10 receiver. I didn't know he was this good.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was this good. I knew he was good. But yeah, maybe there's improvement on top of being that great player.
He's so good, he got his GM fired.
That's true. Before the season started, I think I had him 11th, and it ticked off Eagle fans because I said he's just outside the top 10.
We ticked off a bunch of people.
Time to reevaluate. He is certainly in the top 10 with the season he's having this year.
You should put it in ESPN's evaluator.
The football power indicator.
He would be 37th.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. All right, Marcus, you're going to be the first one to have to deal with this because John and I are for the next 5 days, and then the week thereafter, it's going to both annoy and excite Eagle fans. I'm going to go on record and say I think the Eagles win their next 2 games. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Bears in Chicago this week, and then they beat the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, which is going to lock up everything for them. But it's also going to put a very important decision at the feet of the organization, not just the coaching staff, the organization. Because if they win their next 2 games, they will have locked up everything. Then what do? You still got 2 regular season games to play. Saints at home, Giants at home. We've seen this Eagle team, basically since Nick Sirianni showed up, put a heavy emphasis on less is more. That if we don't put our players at risk, they're going to stay more healthy, and we're prioritizing that over extra work or harder work. And how can you question the results? They're 12-1. They're the best team in the National Football League. But if they have the last 2 weeks of the regular season with meaningless games and then a bye week on top of it because they're the number 1 seed, can you go 3 weeks without keeping your star players fresh and in a continued mode of playing every 7 days? How are the Eagles going to handle it? If I'm right and they win the next 2 weeks.
Well, it goes back to when they had their bye. They had their bye early, right? Like week 7, week 8, something like that. So what I would do, and it seems pretty simple, is say you're in with Dallas and you have, I think it goes New Orleans Giants. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You rest them against New Orleans, you play them against the Giants, and then you get the bye week. So then you effectively have 3 byes. They're going to need time off after Dallas. Dallas is going to be a tough game, win, lose, or draw. Assuming they win it and nothing matters, then a bye week that week is hugely beneficial, especially to Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Javon Curse, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Javon Hargrave, Darius Slay. That's 8 frontline guys 30 or over playing a 17-game season. They'll have played 15 games at the end of this season if they get 3 bye weeks. So all that said, to me, it's a pretty simple equation. Assuming you're in a position where New Orleans and or the Giants don't matter, you rest them against New Orleans, you play them against the Giants, so you go big game, bye-ish, essentially a bye, warm-up game, and you play them 3.5 quarters, doesn't matter what the outcome is against the Giants in the finale, bye, and then you're back at it.
Marcus, you alluded to it and you wrote about it, so I want to bring it up at Inquirer.com. Coming into this week, ESPN, whatever, their football power index, whatever it's called, significantly graded Dallas over Philadelphia. I'll be interested to see how it shakes out this week. But
it's up.
Oh, is it up?
Yeah.
Dallas still ahead.
And guess what?
Yeah.
Dallas is still ahead.
Yeah.
Despite almost losing to a team at home that the Eagles beat.
The Eagles took a lot of hits.
By 12.
The Eagles took a lot of hits that week. They didn't play well. Certainly wasn't their best game, but they didn't have that kind of trouble with Houston.
And it was a short week on the road.
Short week on the road.
I mean,
big road trip. Typically, you don't see that on Thursday night games.
It was
that
just
kind of road trip.
It's insane.
Why do people get so upset about this? You talked to Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham said, "F them. Who cares? Eagles are the best team in football. Who cares if your analytics say the Cowboys are the best team in football? Maybe throw away the analytics and tweak the algorithm."
Well, the algorithm also presents the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs the Chiefs and Bills were ranked to get ahead of the Eagles, and now I think the Bills are just behind them. All that said, the algorithm isn't trash. We have to acknowledge the value of data, but there has to be something in this formula that's flawed, because it's beyond belief that a team that you beat, the fact that you beat a team in Minnesota that has a better record than Dallas, the fact that you have another common opponent that you handled easily on the road on a short week that they struggled with yesterday. If you think that those factors don't point toward the Eagles being a better team and a more likely team to win in the playoffs, and here's one of the anomalies, and it took me a couple of minutes to figure this out. They now have Dallas as the second favorite to reach the Super Bowl behind the Eagles, but the favorite to win it, which tells me they think the Eagles can beat the Cowboys more readily than they think the Eagles can beat the AFC representative, but they think the Cowboys can more readily beat the AFC representative than the Eagles can. So there is a logical path to that, as nonsensical as it seems. But it took me, it took me like 4 minutes to figure out how that could make sense.
Not sure how something can be illogical and nonsensical at the same time, but that's just me. And, oh, by the way, if the Eagles beat the Cowboys in 13 days, whatever it is, and they still have the Cowboys as number one, we'll know somebody's got their thumb on the scale, okay?
That's right.
It's just not adding up to me. I understand the importance of data, but sometimes data just comes out wrong. All right, Marcus, with the fact that they've got the Bears coming up this week, had some injuries coming out of yesterday's game. Again, the Eagles been very protective of their players and have done a good job. They, like everyone in the NFL, has injuries. It's a collision sport. You're going to have injuries. You can't just completely wipe them off the face of the earth. Again, this week, they built themselves some wiggle room with the other teams in the NFL. Did they go gingerly in Chicago? You gave us a great breakdown of potential what could happen once they lock everything up. When they lock everything up, they handled this week's game against Chicago, a team that they should be able to handle pretty damn easily. Do they handle it any differently because they've got the big picture view?
The person who has probably the biggest impact on the Eagles winning and losing over the last 8 years has been Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson strained an oblique yesterday. I think it's on his left side. And he said that he could have stayed in if it was like a playoff game or whatever. But these things, anybody who never covers baseball knows that obliques take 3 or 4 weeks to get right. So the calculus becomes, is the drop off from Lane Johnson to Jack Driscoll significant enough to put the team in peril of losing that game? Jack Driscoll played well yesterday in relief of Lane Johnson, and Jack Driscoll has been a spectacular backup, and they can help him. They're probably going to get Dallas Goedert back, if not this week, next week. So to answer your question, the injury, the situation for me that's most remarkable is, okay, is Lane Johnson going to play? I would be surprised if they play him. They do err on the side of caution. They've got 12 wins. They probably need one more to, really put them in a position where they can, they have that home field advantage. So yeah, I mean, if you think that 13 gets you the number 1 seed, then yeah, because you don't want him to aggravate this and have it in January. Yeah. So I can see them shutting him down into January. Maybe he doesn't play against Dallas either, and maybe that's a bigger deal. But yeah, the only thing, I know the punter got hurt, excuse me, and I don't have anything against him, but he's not a very good punter. And you could replace punters.
Might be a better runner than a punter.
he was pretty good runner, and if he had been more attentive to the sideline, they would have retained the ball. But yeah, I think that might be the one sort of concession that they give this week. Otherwise, they're going full bore, and I think they want to make. I think they're in the business of making statements now. Because why are you throwing that pass to Devontae Smith down the sideline? A pass that should have been intercepted.
Could have been.
That on 4th and 7. That's a bad call. They got away with it. But they got away with it and sent a message to the league that, hey, you never know what we're going to do.
Yeah. With the Chicago game, Marcus, we've been around this team for a long time. There are, I like to call them logical losses. If there was ever a week to have a lull, this is the week. You come off a big NFC East win. Chicago's not relevant. They're not in the playoff picture. And you have Dallas on Christmas Eve, and that's the game against the number 1 team in the football power, or whatever they are, who's ever number 1. But that's the game, right? This is logical to have a letdown. That's the most impressive part of it. They don't have letdowns. I'm always looking for. I had that Tennessee game. I said, Jody will tell you, I bought into it. I said, they're not going to care about this game. AFC Bo. Everybody talks about Mike Vrabel's team being so tough and physical. They just bulldozed them. No lull whatsoever. No looking past. Do you see that ability from this team? Even Dallas talking about playing Houston. Obviously, they didn't bring their A game. That's happened once to the Eagles in Washington. But this is the rare team I'm not concerned about having that letdown game. Is that something you see as well?
They just have I go around every position, really like every single player. They play offended. They play angry. Like Brandon Graham isn't happy that he's being, sort of marginalized. So he plays every snap angry. Josh Sweat has a huge chip on his shoulder because he got so much grief from getting a contract for having really done nothing to earn it, but he's earning it now. Darius Slay is the most aggrieved superstar I've ever seen. James Bradbury's playing for a contract. Miles Sanders is playing for a contract. You go down the line, Jason Kelsey is showing people he still belongs. Fletcher Cox playing for a contract. It's just every single position, like every single nobody has any security. Jalen Hurts is playing for a massive contract. So they understand that the way you win, the way that you eat, the way that you get paid in the NFL, especially, which is funny because it's so dependent on everybody else, more so than maybe any other sport, is you win. General managers and owners believe that there's a magic winning elixir, and if you've drank from that elixir, you become contagious. So everybody's playing with a chip and for a reason, and they're coaching that way. We see very, very innovative, energetic coaching. And you didn't see that at the end of the Andy Reid era, and you didn't see that at the end of Doug Peterson's tenure as well. These coaches are still invested and involved, and two of them are probably going to be head coaches next year, Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon.
The energy coach yesterday was Nick Sirianni when they completed that down the sidelines pass that you said was a bad call. That kind of worked out. I think the coach was a little excited on that one. And he should have been.
I think he was really worried until the ball nestled in Devontae Smith's arms. He was like, I'm going to get roasted for this. I'm going to get roasted for this. Hey, touchdown.
Touchdown. Marcus, no, you got to run. Thank you very much for hanging a couple extra minutes with us today. Great stuff. We'll get you back on again soon enough. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day, John.
Thanks,
Marcus. Appreciate it.
From the Philadelphia Inquirer and WIP here with us on Birds 360.
By the way, I got a lot of blowback for that Devontae Smith play. Like a lot of people saying, number one, Jalen checked to that call, so it wouldn't have been on the coaching staff, but the coaching staff was thrilled. But here's where I got a lot of people. Julian Love was in a position to make a play on the ball, but Jalen threw it right in the bucket. People are saying, well, he'd get blown up. And again, it's that man. He would get blown up in 1985. Devontae Smith probably wouldn't even be playing in 1985 because that type of body. But that's not how they play today.
Right.
You're not allowed to get you're not allowed to take shots at the receiver down the field. The Eagles know that. Take advantage of it, and it works. I don't know.
You watched the Sunday night game last night?
I did not.
You did not.
16
The Chargers just stone cold dominated the Dolphins. You talk about a score that didn't indicate the actual play of the game. Chargers went up and down the field against the Dolphins. Dolphins couldn't do squat. The Dolphins made two big plays. Tyreek Hill picked up a fumble that came out of a scrum. It just kind of popped out to the side. He picks it up and runs past everybody 75 yards for a touchdown. And he had one pass where the defensive back made the wrong read, turned the wrong way. Boom, he's in for 80-yard touchdown, whatever it was. That's it. Otherwise, the Dolphins offense stunk. They did nothing all night. Herbert was phenomenal. He was running out of the pocket, making plays on the run. He was just phenomenal. There was a roughing the passer call on Jalen Phillips on that play in last night's game. He tackled him. He put his hands down on the ground so as not to fall on him, and his chest actually touched his shoulder, and they threw the flag for roughing the passer because he put his body weight on him. No, you saw the video. He worked hard not to put his body weight on him, and they still threw the flag. It's a different game, folks. You got to stop comparing this game to 1995. It just isn't called that way anymore. It is played differently. It's called differently. You just have to analyze what's happening in 22 against everything else that's happening in 2022. All right. One thing Marcus Haight brought up that I want to put to you, John McMullen, because Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, raised this over the weekend in his column about Jalen Hurts and a contract extension, which we know that they can't do right now, but they could do it in 4 weeks if they wanted to. I want to get your take on this when we come back. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Stay right there, Eagle fans.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lee Hockey a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered.
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
Motivated. And always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Got John McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Maga guys here on Birds 365. Appreciate Marcus Hayes joining us. Our buddy Chris Franklin, who comes on almost every Monday after an Eagles victory Sunday. Yeah, that's right. Eagles victory Sunday. That's what we call it because it's happened 12 out of 13 times this year. Oh, that's right. Mixing a Thursday night or Monday. It's not every Sunday, but it's most Sundays we come out and talk about an Eagle win after they have played. So Chris Franklin coming up in about 20 minutes from now, somewhere thereabouts. Do want to get your take on this, Johnny Mac. I'm reading Pro Football Talk over the weekend. I think Florio's website is one of the better ones for just football opinion and information. And he espoused the theory about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. As per the last collective bargaining agreement they had between the players and the owners, they put in place the fact that you cannot, it is against the rules, sign an extension with a player until he has logged 3 years in the league. Any drafted player comes into the league, you cannot discuss and or come to an agreement on a contract extension until he has logged 3 full years. And that third year is denoted when the team finishes their regular season, which is now 17 games. When they did this collective bargaining agreement, it was only 16. It's now 17. So after the Eagles' final game against the season, regular season that is, against the Giants, they are then permitted and allowed to talk to Jalen Hurts about a contract extension. Now, it has never happened that a player has signed a contract extension when the regular season has ended and the playoffs were yet to come, because you kind of focused on the upcoming games, which are more important. The playoffs, that's what everybody plays for. But we've never had a situation like this with a player who's coming to a contract extension earlier because he's a non-first round draft pick. You got a whole bunch of other guys like Tua and Burrow and Herbert who were first round draft picks who had their contract in place. So the contract extension wouldn't be till the year thereafter. The Eagles need to get this done a little bit more quickly than do the other teams who are in the same quarterback 3 years in situation. As per the rules, they can do that. They can talk to Jalen about a contract extension as quickly as 4 weeks from now. Should they? Is that a door they want to open up? You're getting ready for the playoffs. You're concentrating on the playoffs, but there's upside to both parties if they could get a deal done rather quickly. Number one, it takes Jalen worrying about getting hurt, breaking a leg or something along those lines, career-threatening type injury in the postseason. That comes completely off the board because he's got hundreds of millions of dollars guaranteed. It's advantageous for the Eagles because they will not have named an MVP by then, which as of right now, Jalen Hurts has become the favorite. I said last week he should have been the favorite. He is now the official favorite in most of the betting markets ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And oh, by the way, maybe Jalen runs through the playoffs the same way he did in the regular season. The Eagles win a Super Bowl. Cha-ching, the price just keeps going up. Both sides would have a reason to have a conversation and maybe hammer out a deal and get something done. Should the Eagles walk through that door?
I don't think they will. I think the key is getting it done before some of those names you mentioned, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. I think that's the key for the Eagles, to strike early in the grouping, so to speak, because the number's only going up. As everyone signs, it's going up, that's how it works. So I think that's the goal. I don't know offhand. I don't think anybody's done that going into the playoffs, extended somebody.
Never's happened before.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially knowing Jalen Hurts, he doesn't want that on his plate as they're going through the postseason, getting ready to make a run, hopefully from their perspective toward the Super Bowl. He doesn't. That's rat poison. That's the definition of rat poison. He doesn't want anything to do with that. Now, while I say that, Howie Roseman, Nicole Lynn, who was Jalen's agent, yeah, I'm sure. I'm kind of sure they've already started talking parameters. Loose sort of structure and, all right, what do you want here? How about this? Blah, blah, blah. Probably not supposed to. Probably just a couple backdoor emails, backdoor calls. So, those two might start talking because Howie wants to seize the moment before, as I said, the Burrows of the world, the Herberts of the world. Is 2 up for an extension? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they all are. All of them came in the same exact year.
Same year, yeah. So he's involved as well. You want to be first in that grouping because that will get you the most team-friendly deal, and I think that would be more of Howie's goal. But no, I do not. If that's the question, I do not expect an extension after the regular season and before the playoffs or during the playoffs.
No, it's highly unlikely because it's never happened before. My question to you was, should the Eagles be, I have to choose the right word here, pushing for it, attempting to get it done, laying the groundwork?
Well, the Eagles, like I said, they'll lay the ground. They'll try to talk about parameters and try to get. The Eagles always want to be first. They always want to be first. They want to be first because they know it's only going up. As you point out, even if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's only going up. It's not going down. The salary cap's going up. Burrow's contract. If you wait for Burrow's contract, if you wait for Herbert's extension, the number's only getting bigger. So they always want to be the first team in line and get the most cost-effective, friendly deal you can get.
All right, so let me ask it to you from the other direction. If you're Jalen Hurts, right now, he is the leading quarterback in the National Football League in passer rating. Again, an imperfect way to measure quarterbacks, except for the fact that it's the best way to measure quarterbacks. There is no perfect way to measure quarterback play. I think passer rating is as good as it gets, even though it's imperfect. He is the lead candidate in betting markets for the MVP. I don't know how you could put yourself in a better position to get paid than Jalen Hurts has. Oh, wait, there's one more thing. He could do that in the playoffs, too, and then add more dollars to the end of a massive deal that he's going to get. If you're Jalen Hurts and his agent, Do you want to have the conversation? Do you want to continue to bet on yourself? Do you want to run the risk of a massive, major injury that could have an effect on your negotiation? If you were consulting Jalen's side, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I think it's, I think Nicole will do the work and keep Jalen out of it. Jalen Hurts has been trained very well by Nick Saban. And I give Nick most of the credit, to be honest, but he does not want that. He does not want that during the season. Day after the season, yeah, everything. Bring it on. But as long as they're still playing football, rat poison, rat poison, rat poison. He doesn't want to hear anything about it. He knows he's getting paid. I mean, there is not even a path in the world, even a serious injury, and we all hope that doesn't happen. He's still getting paid. He's a young man. Medical advancements and all that stuff might take a hit, but he's still getting a lot of money where he's going to be secure for the rest of his life. So I think from Jalen Hurts' mentality, he doesn't want anything to do with it while they're still playing football.
It hadn't even dawned on me because it's never happened before. No team has ever done that, negotiated with a player as soon as the season was over, before the playoffs started, and got an extension done. Because it had never happened, I didn't think about it, and I thought Florio's point was a good one, but I'm kind of with you. Even though it's a possibility, I think it's highly unlikely that that's something that would happen from either the Eagles' perspective or Jalen Hurts' perspective. All right, from the perspective of the rest of the National Football League, in addition to the Eagles' dominating win over the Giants yesterday, the Cowboys had to come from behind to beat the Texans late. I was ready to just roast Lovie Smith because you were in the midst of watching the Eagle game at that time. I had the Cowboy game on, going back and forth. The Texans got a Dak turnover deep in their own territory, up by 3. Cowboys made a goal line stand. They decided to go for it on 4th down rather than kick the field goal and go up by 6. And somehow they end up with a designated Jeff Driscoll run. Really? That's the best play you could come up with, was a quarterback run by Jeff Driscoll? Anyway, the Cowboys make the stop. Then they got to go to the length of the field, which they did, and they scored a touchdown anyway. So I can't really say, oh, if you kick the field goal, you're up by 6. Cowboys marched it down the field and stuck it in there anyway. So I give them credit for pulling a victory from the jaws of defeat, but they weren't overly impressive in doing so. And the Vikings did get beat by the Lions. I did a lot about the Lions last night on my national show. They're legit, John.
I'm the one who told you, Jody. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I told you how much talent they had. And now they got Jameson Williams back. I think Jared Goff is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this league. I think everybody looks at him as some kind of bust. He's not great, but he's a really good quarterback. Yeah, their offensive line is tremendous. They still have some holes defensively. Aiden Hutchinson's a really good player. I mean, Justin Jefferson had, I don't know what he ended up with, but he should have had. They had a bad call on him. They took a touchdown. They said he stepped out of bounds. He didn't step out of bounds. He should have had 260 yards receiving. So they still have some issues defensively. Offensively, they're one of the most explosive teams in the NFL, and they're only getting better as Jameson Williams gets more mixed in to that lineup. When you're that bad for that long, I always joke, you wake up and you go, "Ooh, we got some good players," because we've been picking at the top of the draft. So, and you saw Penny Sewell. I saw that play. Are you kidding me? That was I think it was a 4th down play. I could be wrong because I wasn't watching the game, but it sealed the game for him. They ran a tackle eligible play, but they put Penei Sewell in motion.
Yes.
And the linebacker was like, well, he's not going to catch the ball. Oh yeah, he was going to catch the ball. And they won the game with that play. So they're inventive. They have a ton of talent offensively. And yeah, that week 1 win over Detroit that everybody said, oh, that's not a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. They're pretty good. I'm not going to overstate it and say they're a great team, but they're a lot better than people think they are.
Oh, by the way, yeah, you and I debated week number 1, and I think I ended up being right for an exactly wrong reason. You said that you wanted to get the Lions out of the way early, or it was a tough game week number 1. And I said, no, give me the Lions, right? I want a W. Start the season. I like the fact that they're open up with the Lions because I want to see the Eagles get off on the right foot. You said you don't want to play the Lions because they don't know how bad they're going to be just yet. They believe they're going to be good because they haven't played anybody. Well, it's a good thing they played the Lions early rather than late because the Lions have become that good. Now, the hell, I knew that was going to happen. I'm not taking too much credit here, but I was right. Get the Lions out of the way before they actually kick it in and become a good team.
I don't know if they're great. I don't want to overstate it. Like I said, they're really talented offensively, though.
Quick question for you. Next week, Eagles, opening round playoff opponent. New York Giants, Detroit Lions. Who are you taking?
Oh, Giants, a million times out of a million. The Giants have so much more talent. The Lions have so much more talent. The Giants are really
Lions or Commanders?
Commander. I'd rather play the Commanders.
Well, then guess what? Lions are pretty good. If you would take the Lions, you'd try to avoid the Lions over 2 teams that, as of right now,
I'll
in the
say
playoffs,
it this way.
One of which who beat the Eagles. That tells you how good the Lions are.
Well, I think, the stars had to align for Washington to be. I don't think the Washington beat the Eagles. I think the Eagles beat the Eagles. I really do. It's a cliche, but I really think the Eagles beat the Eagles. Turnovers uncharacteristic, playing tempo didn't work, as we said, chain, time of possession, all that stuff. I don't think Taylor Heineke is. Jared Goff can play. So, again, I know people don't really. I don't want to overstate it, but he's above average, not a superstar. He can hurt you much more than Taylor Heineke. Now, would I rather play Detroit's defense than Washington's defense?
Sure.
Yes. So it's tough. That last playoff team in the NFC, whomever, I don't think is a good team. I don't think it's going to be a good team. So I'd be more concerned about Detroit because of their explosiveness on offense, and they're probably capable of winning a 35-30 game. They're going to give up points, but they're going to score points.
Agreed. And that was a big win for them yesterday, and it does take the Vikings back down a peg. Yes, gives the Eagles a little bit more wiggle room, but it all comes down to next 2 weeks. Eagles win the next 2 weeks. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. They will have locked up the number 1 seed throughout the playoffs. All right, we mentioned him earlier in the show. I wanted to get your take on him. Grant Calcaterra. Couple of nice catches yesterday. And yeah, he's part of the game plan. And we talk about Jalen all the time and his ability and desire to spread the ball around. First drive, he threw it to absolutely everybody, including Calcaterra. Goddard comes back this week. I'm not going to bemoan the fact that Calcaterra is going to become an afterthought. But what have you seen out of him the last couple of weeks? Are the Eagles going to be set at the tight end position with Goddard and Calcaterra going forward? Oh, by the way, I meant that's why I wanted to bring it up. He had a great block on a running play yesterday.
Yeah.
He cracked back the guy.
Yeah.
The guy never saw him. He just flattened him, opened up a huge hole for Miles. One of the questions about Calcaterra has been his ability to block. We know how great a blocker Goddard is in addition to his ability to catch the football. Calcaterra made a huge block yesterday. Man, Eagles have 2 pretty good tight ends. When they go to 12 formation in the postseason, Johnny,
don't forget Jack Stoll, because Grant's not ahead of Jack Stoll. The Eagles really like Jack Stoll. He's not as explosive as a receiver. But, sometimes you suffer these injuries and you're like, oh, what are we going to do? And it's like a silver lining because guys can show they can play. I think that applies to both Jack and Grant Calcaterra, because Jack Stoll's played a ton snap-wise in the absence. And he's more of a blocker, and so Grant's always going to get more of a look because he's the receiving type tight end. But, yeah, that block you mentioned, that's the most important part because he's got to be competent, at least blocking. to get more significant playing time. So the more he can improve there, the better. But yeah, as you go down the stretch, it's still going to be Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll, and Grant's going to be number 3. But I think they're really excited, long term about his potential, especially on the receiving end. And then Reed Blankenship, unfortunately, got hurt. Same thing, silver lining. That guy was playing great in C.J. Gardner. Now, part of it is they were playing teams that couldn't take advantage, that weren't good passing teams. I mean, let's be honest. They were, I said, to me, everybody kind of looked at that stretch. We talked about it at the beginning of the show with Taylor and Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Said, oh, what are we going to do? Not realizing even Green Bay, who has Aaron Rodgers, they're not a great passing team this year because of other issues. The offensive line's banged up and bad. Bakhtiari's in and out, barely plays. He doesn't trust the receivers. And we know those other teams, Indianapolis and Tennessee and the Giants, don't throw the football well. They just don't. They don't throw consistently. And maybe that helped out more than people realized the run. They were so hyper focused on the running game. How are we going to stop this? They got a bit of a break facing teams that couldn't throw the ball.
All right, do me a favor. We're going to break here. Chris Franklin, NJ.com, scheduled to join us next. Punch up your Pro Football Focus ratings from yesterday. For
not
the
up
Eagles,
yet.
The individual players for each team not up yet?
Not up yet.
Then
as usual, Bird Street, they usually go up about 10:30 in the morning.
Then I'll ask you your opinion. I was going to let you use Pro Football Focus as a guide. How do you think Kayvon Wallace played yesterday? Because I'm watching it on TV. You were there. He made a couple of plays. He also seemed to be out of position on a play or two. He could be a key guy this week. If Reed Blankenship's going to miss the game, C.J. Gardner-Johnson not due back yet. Somebody's got to be out there with Marcus Epps at the safety position. And, oh, by the way, Epps plays all 100% of the plays. I think it was part of it, too. They'd like to get him a playoff, too, and they couldn't do it because they were so short at the safety position. Yeah. How do you think Wallace played filling in yesterday?
I haven't rewatched the game yet. But what you described is typically Kayvon. Like he can make some plays, but he's also out of position a lot. It's one of the reasons why he kind of lost his job behind the scenes to Reed Blankenship. So then you have the garbage time aspect of it. Like, what does it really mean? At that point of the game, there was a lot. There was a lot of garbage.
He was in time well before garbage time.
No, I know, but there was still garbage time was 21-0, Jody. There was a lot of garbage time in that stinking game. Kayvon played. That's what I'm trying to look. He had 46, so it's 72%. Pretty early. Reed only played 18 before he got hurt. But the game was already over. It was literally over. It was 21-0. Like I was joking with. It was over. The game was over.
But do we not give Brandon Graham credit for his sacks and garbage time? We dismiss those two. If we're going to dismiss anything that Kayvon Wallace did after 21-0, do we do the same with everybody else?
No, I'm not going to. Yes, I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to dismiss the performance. I'm saying this is one of the reasons I'm not a stat guy. I say all the time in the NFL, and there are some people that do this, and they throw out. They do their analytics and they throw out, meaningful time versus non-meaningful time, and they weight it. That's what I think the NFL is about. This game was over at 21-0. So everything after that was kind of like the defense giving up yardage late. That's going to affect their ranking overall. And they don't look quite as good as they were when they were dominating when the game mattered. I'm not picking on Kayvon. I'm saying if he played well, and I don't think he played poorly. If he played well, I'm not going to get that excited by it because of the situation, the team they were playing. They were better than the team. He should play well. They should dominate. They did dominate. That's all good. I'm just not going to put a lot of weight on it, is all I'm trying to say.
The reason why garbage time stats can actually be meaningful is, yeah, guys are playing hard because they're not getting regular time. They're only getting garbage time. So when they get out there,
I said that about
they want to
Jacoby
put
last
something
week
on film so that they look good, so that maybe they can get out of garbage time.
I was really impressed by Jacoby last week in garbage time, but just his instincts, not the numbers. Like, I didn't care about the numbers. Like, everybody was, whatever it was, 6 tackles and 15 snaps. That I don't really care about. But the fact that he was diagnosing plays and getting into the backfield, I say, well, that's pretty impressive. That kind of stuff. So, one of the things I've seen Kayvon play enough, he's not Jacoby Dean when it comes to football instinct. So I'm not going to expect that off the bat, number one. It's not a good situation to be down to your third safety. I feel comfortable saying that.
He's John McMullen. I'm Johnny McDonald. We are your Mac Birds 365 guys. Quickie timeout. Scheduled to join us is Chris Franklin from NJ.com to look back at yesterday's blowout victory. The Eagles over the Giants, number 1 team in the NFL right now, the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, we're talking here on Birds 365.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered,
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated,
Motivated. And always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
We got Johnny McDonald and John McMullen. Your Mac Birds 365 guys. We are aided for the next 15, 20, 25 minutes by our buddy from NJ.com, Chris Franklin, who comes on with us after most Eagles victories and the one loss. He came in after the loss too, so don't worry about it. Here's the first question for you, Mr. NewJersey.com. which of course is where the Giants play. Because I had this debate on social media with a couple of people last night. The crowd at kickoff yesterday at Giants Stadium. We know the Eagles are one of the best traveling fan bases in the entire National Football League. Shoot, they took over Arizona, which is 3,000 miles away, and went and took over that stadium. We know they did it in Washington. Not surprising because the Commanders aren't very good and their fans are pretty frustrated, even though they're having a nice year. But yesterday, I thought at the start of the game, it was really a Giants crowd. That they came, they backed their team, they gave you a couple crowd shots on TV, didn't see a lot of green. Eventually you did, as the Eagles went up 21-0 before you could blink. And then, the Giant fans were sitting on their hands and making no noise whatsoever. But from the kickoff yesterday, comparing what the Eagle fans usually do on the road, how loud were they? Were Giant fans 80%, 75%, 90%? What would you think the crowd was at the kickoff yesterday?
I thought it was somewhere around at kickoff. I thought it was around like 80-20. I don't know if people got stuck on the outer lanes of the turnpike. I don't know if they were going around looking like, oh, there's the New York City skyline. Let me take a couple pictures before they came in and to watch the game. But it was a very, very quiet. It was a very pro Giants crowd early. Then obviously when the game got out of hand, all of a sudden you saw how many like reigning Eagles fans were down there because they started to go down toward the lower level. So I probably say at kickoff, I probably say it's about an 80-20 crowd, but it definitely filled in toward the end of it. It became an Eagles
crowd over the course of the game because of the way the game was going. Exactly.
I joke, Chris, the Giants PA announcer had tremendous energy at the beginning of the game.
Oh, yeah.
He had Zach Berman-like energy, I like to call it. And
good morning, everybody.
Yeah, he was fired up. And after that third touchdown, it went way down. I mean, way down. That pretty much sums up the crowd. Same thing with the crowd. Yeah. I mean, Giants fans are good for the first time or in the mix for a playoff berth for the first time in a long time. So people weren't giving up their tickets. And number one, I'm glad to see you back from that blizzard after the game.
Oh my
man, it's always something when we go up there. Always something. Always something when we go up there. But it was a dominant performance to the point where I was telling Jody, he's asking, how did Kayvon Wallace play? I mean, it was all garbage time after 21-0. It really was.
Yeah, it was a weird feel. Like I pretty much have most of my story already written, like halfway through the fourth. It was crazy in that way too. It got that way, but if this is a lead into the Kayvon Wallace one, yeah, I'm a little worried about Reed Blankenship right now because I think when you look at the way, I think you saw Kayvon player as a complete player, what he is as a player. He's really good against the run. He's really good at stopping players run games in the box and being part of that. But when it comes to the pass game, he sells out so much, stop the run. He becomes a liability in the pass game. And if I'm the Bears right now, if I'm Eberflus, like being a defensive-minded guy that Eberflus is, I'm saying like, hey, you see what this guy is doing right now? Make sure you attack him. If Blankenship somehow is not able, if it's a long term or he's done for the year. I mean, I have some concerns with that safety position now until you get Gardner Johnson back.
Yeah, January 1st, by the way, first day CJ can be back. Yeah, just wanted to throw that in there.
And have you guys seen either one of you guys seen him down at the Eagle facility? I know they are very tight-lipped about Eagle injuries, and everyone in the NFL is. This is not an indictment of the Eagles. Everybody keeps their injury information under wraps. Has anybody seen Gardner? Are we optimistic that he's going to be back after the Cowboy game?
I haven't seen
him. I have
him.
Not seen him. No, he has been kept away from us. So, pretty serious injury, but history says he will be back this season. But there are varying degrees. So we bring up Zach Ertz missed 1 week with a lacerated kidney and a dislocated rib. That was a playoff game he came back for. But there are different varying degrees of that injury. And obviously the Eagles are being very cautious in the regular season. But I do expect him back this season. I don't think it's a season. Now, Reed, there's some concern that that's a season-ending injury, and we hope not. Well, I don't know if we're going to hear it today, but I don't think he's going to be out there in Chicago. Let's put it that way.
I don't think he is, and I don't think Aaron Siposs. We were looking at Aaron Siposs in the locker room yesterday. He was on a walking boot and crutches too. So it's going to be a busy week for us. I know. It's all of a sudden. I know we talk about we're football guys, and we have to be ready on the crime beat. Thankfully, not for this team, but when you look at it now, it's like we're becoming doctors now. All of a sudden, with all these injuries piling up.
All right, if you're going to be doctors, then I'm going to ask you to judge somebody's character as well. Eagles are probably going to need a new punter. And
no.
You do realize that this week charges were dropped against the punt god Matt Ariza, who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills. The story broke once he was already in camp that he and his friends were being accused of sexual advancement with a woman. They did their investigation. They found out this week that there wasn't enough to sustain a charge against him. The Bills didn't wait. They didn't care. They released him immediately. Eagles going to need a punter, and this guy is as good as anybody else just in purely punting that's out there available at this time. Will the Eagles deal with all the questions that come with a guy like Matt Ariza?
I wouldn't sign up for two reasons, and one's football related, one's not football related. I'll start with a non-football related one. You don't need that distraction right now when it comes to your punter of all people and Vince's team, because right now we know you have a well-oiled machine right now. The Eagles are rolling. The locker room is doing okay, and there's not really any distractions. I think the only distraction he had was beforehand was this is him going undefeated, and we know that's not going to happen now. So to bring a guy who's going to be on the field, you hope, maybe only the whole field.
He's never on the field, by the way. I said, I'm disappointed Aaron got hurt. And by the way, that was a nice run, Chris. But I mean, I wasn't that concerned. I'm like, Jake's done it in the past, and they're not going to have to punt that much. So
you don't have to do that.
Yeah,
and then I think he's more of a power punter than he is like a finesse one and putting it in the 20. And we know he's going to outkick that coverage. You just look at he's going to outkick the coverage, and we've seen what's happened with the special teams too.
Yeah, Tennessee did. Yeah, that kid can kick the ball too, and he just outkicked his coverage. But that's a Jeffrey Lurie decision, literally. I mean, nobody else. That's not Howie Roseman. That's one of those that goes in. Same thing when we talked about Deshaun Watson. That's a Jeffrey Lurie decision. Same thing with Matt Ariza. Now, I think there's enough punters on the street. The Eagles work some out occasionally on those Tuesday workouts. They have a file of guys available. I don't think it's going to be Matt Ariza. I don't.
No. Yeah, far. I think it's far from it. He'll get. I think he'll get a job next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in the league. But I think he's going to let him cool down a little bit and then go again.
Yeah. But I like your thought on the distraction. Not needed for a guy who maybe, because the offense is so good, maybe he's out there twice a week. I mean, and they go for it so much on fourth down as well.
Yeah, it's unless if it was a guy like a wide receiver or impact guy, you'd have to still weigh it. Personally, I'm more of a stay away from guys that have that baggage around them. But usually for a specialist, no, you don't want to do that. And besides, those guys stay off to the side anyway. They have their own thing, their own routines. I wouldn't do it for a punter.
Let me ask a fourth down question. Because John raised this earlier, and I saw the same thing on social media. The 4th and 7 completion down the sidelines to Devonta Smith. Yes, the safety could have gotten there, and he could have picked off the pass. Yes, the safety could have decided just to make Devonta Smith part of the second row of the stands if he wanted to. He didn't do either one. Devonta Smith caught the ball, took it into the end zone, and basically closed the game out at that juncture. Why do people look at the potential downside when it was the key play in the game? Perfect pass, by the way. Couldn't have been. If he had gotten out there and placed it with his hand, Jalen Hurts could not have thrown a more perfect pass to Devonta Smith on that play. Why do people have to look at the downside when it's already been played and the upside has been registered? Why do they even go there, Chris Frankel?
because I think when you look at this and it becomes January and you think possibly February with this team, you're not gonna have Julian Love back there at safety. And I'll start that one. I don't know why. That's one of the things you take the 15. If I'm Julian Love, I'm sending a message early for the Giants. I'm taking out Smith if I can. If I'm a safety in that position, and he tried to go for the pick, he should just knock it away, whatever. But that's a whole other story. But I think when you look at this, you try to project what it's going to be like, say, with another top tier safety back there, and I wouldn't have thrown that in that situation. I wouldn't have called that in that situation. That took cojones that I wouldn't have done anyway on that one. But I think it's one of those things. You just got to see. You got to worry about future teams and what happens with this. If this was, say, was a Super Bowl or something like that, and you have a better defense that you have to go against, and may not have been a play call I would have called there. I probably would stay conservative and just run the ball, and because then if you miss it, if it's incomplete, you just gave the Giants life, and they're potentially marching back the other way, even though their offense was sputtering. You never know. All it takes is one little mistake, and next thing you know, you give them life, and it's possibly a lot closer to what it was.
By the way, some good news. That's all we give you here on Birds 365.
Oh, we got an award?
No, from our buddy Mike Garafolo of NFL Media. Eagles received good news on Reed Blankenship's knee following scans today. Low-grade sprain, short-term injury, not a candidate for IR. So it's week to week, and I know there were some people yesterday throwing around those three letters that dare not we speak his name. A couple ACL throw around, so they were concerned about that after the game. Good news for Reed Blankenship and the Eagles because, they're banged up at safety.
Yeah, and they need it back. And if it's 2 weeks, if it's
probably
1 week,
lost Jody, but go ahead, Chris.
Oh, cool, no problem. If it's 1 week, I think you can live with it. And as long as it's 2 weeks, because you need the safety depth too. So when you look at the way, when you look at basically, if you go Kayvon, you can go Josiah Scott if you need to. I probably would put him in there a little bit more than Kayvon, but I think overall, the fact that they get him back, they can still use their three safety looks, their three safety packages, and still use them effectively. And I think that's a big deal for the Eagles because he not only added value on the defensive side, he also a pretty decent special teams player too. So they lucked out big time when it comes to that, and I'm very sure they're happy at the NovaCare Center when hearing that news.
A couple of major milestones met yesterday. Miles Sanders over 1,000 yards, first since Shady did it 2014. A.J. Brown 1,000 yards, first wide receiver to do it since Macklin 2014. Jalen Hurts 10 rushing touchdowns, Miles 11 rushing touchdowns. This historic pace that this offense is on right now, is this the best offense the Philadelphia Eagles have ever had?
I don't know. Those Frankfurt Yellow Jackets teams, we all were there. We saw them. They were so dominant right now.
Franklin. Don't go Franklin Yellow Jackets. Give me one player in the Franklin Yellow Jacket.
I have no clue on that one. I have no clue on that. But the only way you can really think of looking at dominance-wise is looking like, say, those Steve Van Buren teams, 48 and 49. That's when you have to start going back that far. That's just it's crazy to think about. And you look at some of these, you even look at the Andy Reid offenses when you had all the way they were churning out sometimes in 04 especially.
This is a better offense than the T.O. Donovan offense.
Yeah. Well, I asked Nick that last week. I said, he's been around. He loves Phillip Rivers. You know that, Chris. He loved Andrew Luck. He's had some really good quarterbacks in his past, and he admitted he's never been this versatile as an offense. Dual threat quarterbacks, people have this old mentality that, they're going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. It's not sustainable. Maybe it isn't sustainable, but when it's working, it's freaking difficult to stop. I know that. And Jalen Hurts never takes big hits. He's very cognizant of he's very good. Some people don't have that knack for getting down when they need to get down, when they, get out of bounds, when they need to get out of bounds. I've seen him take maybe 2 or 3 big hits this year. They're usually in the pocket.
Yeah. And getting back to it, when you look at not that, is to look at the balance that this team has. I think when you look at the way that You look at the way you stop the run, they get put 380 on you. If you pass and start worrying about A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, they're going to run down your throats. I think that's the balance is what's impressed me, and also decision making of Hurts was just into when John, what you talked about when he came to hits too, because he's got that feel for a game, and when you're a quarterback and you get that, you're in sync with everything that's going on. You start seeing that coverage. Everything starts getting a lot easier for you, and I think he's just really in tune right now. To me, he's the MVP of the league right now. He's playing that way, and it just goes down from his decision making all the way to his throws to his running ability.
Did we freeze up Jody? I think we got a frozen Jody Mag tone. Is he frozen for you, Chris?
Hey, he was. I was saying, hey, Jody, look.
It's always with streaming. I never know if he's frozen for me, but he's talking to you. It's one of those things. But we'll power through it. The defense doesn't get a lot of love because of the explosion of the offense. We just talked about the superstars. Jalen Hurts, potential MVP. A.J. Brown has been just unbelievable for this team. Dallas Goedert's coming back. I thought they would have a problem replacing Grant Calcaterra. Hey, let's get Grant Calcaterra involved. Let's game plan for Grant Calcaterra. But this defense, and especially this front, I think it starts there. But I also want to give some love to TJ Edwards, because TJ Edwards, man, he's good friends with TJ Watt, the TJs in the offseason. And they both work out together. And from day one, TJ's remade his body. So people always go back to, he ran a 4.87 and whatever it was his pro day. He can't cover. He covers everybody. He's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. Why can't people put these sort of narratives and put them down and say, hey, you know what? People do improve. People do get better.
Well, I think a lot of it is first impressions. And when you see a guy like TJ versus the guys, say, who's coming out of like Georgia or like say Dean or something like Nakobe Dean or something like that, when we first seen it, it's about first impressions. And everybody's first impressions with him is, wow, he's just a plotting linebacker who can't cover. And people forget, like you mentioned, people forget that how well some of these guys can work. You can learn stuff over time. And he's really impressed me. When they go that Tampa 2 look, or they tell him to go cover that deep part of the middle of the field, we saw it in the beginning of training camp this year all the way through now. He's been deflecting passes left and right in the middle of it. And it's making it tougher. You got to put some touch on that middle of the field. And they got a tough decision to make. I mean, you got a guy, you got Dean Wade, and you got to make a decision which linebacker you're going to sign in a way. Because you got TJ Edwards who's playing a high level. I like Kaiser White, the way he's playing. I think he's playing a high level on the outside as well too, and covering some of the running backs and helping out on the edge. So they got some. This offseason is going to be tough for them, but I think overall TJ Edwards is making a very, very good case for him to remain in the middle.
And a guy I was rooting for yesterday, and I checked my wagering outlets. They don't offer interceptions. I wanted to bet James Bradbury to get an INT yesterday in the worst way, because we've seen the Eagles' revenge tour work pretty well this year, guys stepping up against their former team. I said, for sure, Bradbury's going to get an INT, and I was ready to wager on it. They didn't offer it where I was looking, which would actually save me some money. I thought Bradbury played well again, made a couple of plays on the ball. They didn't throw at him all that much, probably smart on the Giants' part, but he didn't come up with an INT. How do you not resign him? If he's your key guy, do you just let him walk away?
See, the things I want to know is how much. First, I think you have to, because when it comes to the outer edge, I don't see a corner in the top 5 in the draft where the rule says they're going to be picking. I don't see a corner there that I'm thinking like he is worthy of that pick. I'm looking more Will Anderson. But it's going to be tough. The one thing that the Eagles have in their benefit is that it looks like the cap's going to increase a decent amount with that new TV deal. So it gives you some flexibility and a better chance to do so. I just don't know. I think it's going to be one of those. I just really think somebody's going to come out of nowhere and offer a crazy amount of money, just because we all know it's tough to find a good cornerback. And the way he's able, I think he's among the league leaders in passes defended. He's among the league leaders.
Unbelievable year.
Yeah. QB rating against is tough, and teams are going to see that. Somebody's going to offer him a lot of money.
And let me run one more guy by you. What do you do about BG? He has the big day yesterday. Now he's getting 8.5 sacks. He could get 10 sacks. You would love to think he'd want to come back and be an Eagle for his entire career. Do you try and get him on a hometown discount? Do you potentially run the risk of watching him walk out of town if you don't give him a fair market value? And your evaluation of fair market, mine, could be different than Howie Roseman's and Brandon Graham's. We all might agree to disagree, but how do you not bring BG back after the kind of year that he's having? What if there's another team that says, yeah, we'll pay him above and beyond market rate? Because look at what this guy's got left in the tank. We could use a motivator like a Brandon Graham in our locker room. What happens when he hits free agency?
See, I know Howie's not going to sign everybody because he learned his lesson from the 2017 team. Excuse me, from the 2017 team. But I think it's one of those guys. I think the Eagles also learned a lesson when they let Brian Dawkins walk. And Graham's going to have a role in this organization no matter what, I think, or in the media in this area when it's all said and done. But I think this team learns that, you know what, keep him around for another year, because this team might be very young next year with all those free agents. You might have backfill it with a lot of draft picks, and you need guys to show what the Eagle, so quote unquote Eagle way. No, you Patriots, but what the Eagle way is to do that. So I think it'll meet somewhere in the middle. I think it's a lot of edge rushers coming out there, but BG's going to get a decent amount, I think, next year, especially 10. Like he's going to get 10 sacks. I really think so. Even if he gets a straight hand one, like at the end of the season against the Giants, he's going to get his 10. But I think he'll be back, and it's going to be
he's enjoying the new role. And if there's one prediction I'm going to make, it's that Brandon Graham's going to be back. He doesn't want to leave. The Eagles don't want him to leave. It's their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. He's a big part of this organization. And like Zach Berman, I mentioned, sets the energy for us, Chris Franklin. Brandon Graham sets the energy for the Eagles. They realize what he means to this organization. I think he's going to be one of the easiest get-backs because both sides want him to be back. You know, I since we're talking about the defense, I think it was D-Gun. It might have been Mike Missinelli asked me on the JAKIB Media postgame show last night. They asked me, who was the MVP of this defense? Who was the MVP of this defense? We know Jalen Hurts might be the MVP of the league, so it's kind of easy on the offensive side of the football with the importance. But you can make a case for Hassan Reddick. You can make a case for Javon Hargrave as interior pass rush. You can make a case for Slay. You can make a case for Bradbury. You could make a case for CJ, at least until he got injured, so he's kind of fallen off. But I just picked the guy we were talking about. I picked TJ Edwards. Who would be your pick?
I'm taking Slay, and the reason why I'm taking Slay is the fact that you can basically almost take half the field away. Well, you can. It's tough to throw against Bradbury too, but in fact, you can take that half away. Put him on a guy like Justin Jefferson. We saw what he did against that. Now that you know you're only operating with half a field, now you got to worry about you're trying to find the right way. Gannon puts guys in when he's on, he can put guys in the zones and floodles or everything. It takes a lot of time for a quarterback to look in the area the opposite way. Teams know you're going to not going to throw it Slay, and that gives the pass rush a more time to go ahead and sack the quarterback and get pressure on him too, and cause those mistakes. So for me to wait, what he's done not only on the field but as a captain too. I mean, we heard about Bradbury the way he talked about Bradbury made personal. He's energized. He's fit into that captain role very well. So I look at those two things overall, and I'm picking Slay to be the MVP of the defense.
Edwards would be my second choice, John, and it's really close. But yeah, I'm going Reddick. Do you realize that he played 86% of the snaps?
Yeah, he played a lot yesterday.
At defensive end, which is a rotational position. TJ Edwards only played 70-some-odd snaps. Reddick played 86% of the snaps. And he gets double-digit sacks, third straight year, third different team, never been done before in the NFL. The Eagles finished where in sacks last year in the National Football League?
31st.
Where are
30th.
they now?
Actually, 30th. They were tied for second to last.
Okay.
So we'll give them
and where are they right now?
Number one.
And
without blitzing, by the way, people, for the most part, they get home with
Reddick
4.
doesn't need help. He gets there blowing by his guy.
They really got something going with that stunt they run Hassan and Fletcher Cox on the left side. They really got something going with that. This team is so good. It's boring. I told
it's like a Madden team. It's like playing Madden on easy the last couple of weeks. It's like, okay, all right, you just roll wave after wave. It's like how he had the cheat code and just went there, start using free agency, got rid of the salary cap, somehow found a way to get all these other guys. And that's key with Fletcher Cox, you mentioned. Look, you see the benefits of signing Linval Joseph and Dominican Sue because now he's not on the field as much and he's looked a lot like a completely different player too.
All right. I want to thank the Philadelphia Eagles for the last couple of weeks for blowing out their opponents because I got to kind of pay attention to the other games because I'm at CBS afterwards. So I have to talk about them as well. I go back and rewatch Eagles, but I don't have to watch every single play. And it was really easy yesterday when, as John said, it was 21-0. It was basically over. All right, Chris Franklin, looking ahead, Chicago Bears this week. I'm going to give you an under-over.
Okay.
Rushing yards by Justin Fields. This is one thing the Eagles haven't really faced this year. Taylor Heineke made a couple of plays with his legs, and that was the only game they lost. Daniel Jones is a quarterback run. Shoot, I didn't even notice until yesterday. He's now rushed for more yards this season than any Giant quarterback ever has. Well, the Giants have never really had a rushing quarterback, but give Daniel Jones at least that much credit. Justin Fields is the number one rusher in the NFL at the quarterback position. Averages 75 yards a game on the ground. So I'm going 74.5 Justin Fields rushing yards this Sunday against the Eagle defense. You going under or over?
I'm going under because I think they're going to mush rush it a little bit and control him and contain him in the pocket. And that's the case. So you have to worry about Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet. I think the Eagles will do that. So I think they will.
I want to make a prediction on this, Jody. I'm gonna go way over. I'm gonna go way over 75, and I'm gonna say Eagles fans lose their mind because Justin Fields going to run for 120 or so.
Oh, 120! And, holy crap!
I'll put a coffee bet on that
high.
Yeah,
I'll put a coffee bet on that.
Well, you know why? Because the Bears can't do anything else. And he just runs around, and he's so athletic. So he's going to break off 2 long runs. That's going to be 80 of it. People are going to lose their minds thinking they're going to see Justin Fields every week running around like a nut because they don't have an offensive scheme or an offensive game plan. And it's not going to matter in the big picture, but he's going to run for a lot of yards. Now, I don't know if he's healthy. I know he was banged up, so that's got to factor into it. But he's all they have. He's all they have.
Right. And other teams, I'm sure, have tried to mush rush against him, and he's gone for 900 yards. I don't know this great strategy by the defense coordinator will be in place. But I'll tell you why I might take under, because of something that Chris Franklin said earlier. Kayvon Wallace, good against the run. Kayvon Wallace, not so good in pass coverage, but he's good at coming in, giving assistance in the box. Maybe Kayvon gets a bunch of tackles and holds them under 75.
They have a Buddy Ryan offensive scheme.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I got nothing. Justin, go do something. And it's usually a run. That's their offensive scheme.
Will be fun next week. Mr. Franklin, thank you as always for coming on board with us. We will talk to you after next Sunday's game, which was all right. One more percentage chance the Eagles win next week against the Bears. Whether Justin Fields goes for 70 or $120, Johnny Mack set the bar high. Either way, what's the percentage Eagles get to 13-1 now?
I'm going to go with 75 because the only reason I'm going to say 5, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, and if it's some freak snowstorm in the middle of it, I got to look at it. But if it's going to be sunny and clear or something like that for it, I think it goes up to 90. But it's
maybe I jumped the gun, but he's all they have is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah. The fact they came out with 9, it opened up at -9, and the Eagles were favored by 9. Yeah, it's the Eagles.
9 on the road is some respect.
At C Franklin News, by the way, follow Chris, NJ.com/Eagles does a tremendous job there and with us, by the way. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys very much. Y'all have a good one. The coffee bet's still on. I'm sorry.
There you go. Chris Franklin here with us on Bird 365. All right, quickie timeout. My computer went down on me a couple times there, Johnny Mac. I disappeared. I like the Eagle defense, make people disappear.
Yeah,
maybe
man.
they did that to me too. But I'm back, and we're coming back to put a bow on the show.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Jim Gardner is an icon.
A Philadelphia treasure.
He's a mentor, a pace setter.
Jim is my North Star.
He's trusted, revered.
Appreciated.
He is Action News.
He's compassionate. Honest.
And fair.
He is extremely dedicated.
Motivated. And always seeking the truth.
He's also funny. We are a team of many.
Jim Gardner is our leader, and we're lucky to have him.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Appreciate you jumping on in here on Birds 365. Good show this morning. How could it not be after Eagles did what they did to the Giants yesterday? Thank all of you streamed in. We got up and over a 700 number today, which is new heights for us. And at least as per the stream, we got over 100 likes today. So thank you very much for hitting that like button. We need help with our algorithm. Not as much as ESPN does with theirs. It somehow still has the Cowboys as the team most likely to win the Super Bowl. They really got to look into that algorithm. Doesn't make any sense. But thank you. If you didn't today, go ahead and do it before you sign out today. Hit the like button for us here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, last thing. One question you need to answer for me. What will the Pander-in-Chief be donning today for his day after news gathering with you guys?
Yeah, it's going to be Eagles related. Lately, he's just gone with the sweatshirt because it's cold, so it hasn't been.
Basic Eagles hoodie, is that what we're talking here?
Basic Eagles hoodie. I'm going to go. Maybe some Lane Johnson, maybe a Lane Johnson hoodie. But I'm going to go basic Eagles hoodie would be my best guess.
Did they come out with any swag with the Christmas album?
Nah, I'm sure they have, but Nick hasn't worn it yet. Somehow they got the Peanuts trademark to use for that thing. I don't know how they got that, but
Peanuts trademark? What are you talking about?
Snoopy, Charlie Brown. The cover of the have you not seen the cover?
No.
Yeah, it's got a Peanuts vibe to it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they must have cut a deal with somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Well, more power to them. Hope, knowing that funds go to charity, that they do great with that. I'm not a vinyl guy. I was a vinyl guy. I do not have a record player. How long did you keep a record player before your wife said or somebody told you, throw that thing out? We're never going to listen.
Not long.
I've
never had. I haven't had one for a long time. I couldn't tell you. Probably when
I kept one for the longest time. I'm telling up until about 5 years ago, I still had a record player. I don't have one anymore. So
you have 38s for that record player? I say
had
that.
38s, but hey, when I threw the record player out, I threw up. No, there's, I guarantee you there's still some vinyl left in this house. Even the way we have no way to listen to it, there are probably some records.
By the way, how much time? I want to yell this real quick. 12 for 88, 14 for 82, 8 for 60, 15 for 178, 13 for 147, 18 for 85. When Chicago figured out they had nothing left, nothing else, that's what they've done with Justin Fields. Now, the thing that complicates matters, he was inactive, he was hurt, he came back last week. It was only 6 for 71. So I don't know how healthy he is, but they went to the point where they said, we got nothing else. Just run it, Justin. Just run it.
All right. So you got over 75. You got over 119. So you said he was getting
I got over 75.
All you have to do, he averages 75 per game. So that's the number he's got to hit. We'll see if he hits it. Partner, I say we do this again tomorrow. The Eagles are still going to be 12-1 when we get together tomorrow. You up for it?
Let's do it.
We will be back in 2-2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.